Hello everyone and welcome to the tiebreaks of the FTX Crypto Cup knockouts quarterfinals. It's Hikaru Nakamura versus Magnus Carlsen, and this is now Blitz territory. So after the 4 rapid games have been played, the result was a draw. Hikaru started by winning the first game, then Magnus retaliated with the black pieces in game 2, and then game 3 and game 4 ended in a draw. Now game 5, which is the first game of the Blitz section, ended by Magnus winning with the white pieces. It was a pretty straightforward win in a really tough situation. Hikaru blundered a piece, but now Hikaru has the white pieces. It's a blitz game. Everything is in his hands. If he can win this, then he will force Armageddon. If not, then Magnus proceeds to the semifinals, and Hikaru is out of the FTX Crypto Cup. So without further ado, let's check it out and let's see who will get closer to winning that. Almost $100,000 in Bitcoin. So Nakamura with the white pieces opens with e4. We have e5 by Magnus, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5. Again, the Ruy Lopez is on the board, and again we have the Berlin defense. So knight to f6, we have d3 and the bishop to c5 now. We have c3, and now both players just castle. That's not castles. Castles by black, castles by white, and now d6. We have rook to e1, and now a6, chasing away this bishop. We have bishop to a4, and now we have bishop back to a7. We have h3 by Hikaru, taking away the g4 square from Carlsen's pieces, and the knight to e7 now. We have knight b to d2 and knight to g6. So this has all been played before, nothing out of the ordinary. Knight to f1, the knight now coming to g3 or e3, depending on what black plays. And now d5, the very early d5. Magnus asking, I'm already leading the match. If you want, you can accept this, and we can play some serious chess. And here known moves in this position are bishop to g5 and the knight to g3. However, here Hikaru plays queen to e2, and it is now as of move 12 that we have a completely new game. So let's see how Magnus deals with this. He starts with c6, and okay, we have bishop to d2, continuing development. Now comes rook to e8. We have rook a to d1 by Hikaru, and now comes h6. We have knight to g3, and now bishop to e6. So both players just developing their pieces to optimal squares. We have queen to f1 by Hikaru, and now comes b5, grabbing more space on the queen side. Bishop to b3, and now queen to c7. Now the rooks are connected, and he can bring the other rook into the game as well. Hikaru here trades once on d5. We have c captures on d5, and now d4. And here Hikaru is basically hoping that Magnus trades this pawn for pawn, but Magnus, of course, not interested in that. He advances the pawn to e4. And now Hikaru's position is already very, very difficult to play. By playing this e4 move, this diagonal opened up, and that's huge trouble. Knight to h2, and now bishop back to b8, instantly going for this queen-bishop battery. Now this knight, if it ever leaves, then queen captures on h2 will just be checkmate. So Hikaru has to be very careful here. He starts by playing queen to e2. He frees up one of the f1 square for the knight, so the knight on f1 will control nicely both of these squares and defend from any future checkmate threats. So here, knight to f4, basically forcing a trade, because if you leave the knight here, that's just too powerful a piece. So bishop captures, we have queen captures on f4, and now this knight comes to f1. Now this knight can move, as this knight controls both of these squares. So here, queen to g5, now making room for the other knight on f4, and Hikaru goes king to h1. We have we have bishop to d6 now. Magnus wants to bring this rook into the game as well, and queen to d2 now. Hikaru has to offer a queen trade and hope to do something here. His position is very bad, and it's a terrible position to be in, since Magnus already won the first game, and now Hikaru has to win to force tiebreaks in the form of the Armageddon game. So here, bishop to f4, Magnus blocks this, forces the queen away, queen to c2, and now rook a to c8. We have knight to e2 now, hoping to eliminate this dark square bishop, but Magnus just brings it back. Now the rook has been developed, and we can bring the bishop all the way back. So here, queen to d2, again, Hikaru offers a queen trade, and again, Magnus declines. Of course, you don't want to trade queens. The power of black's position is in the potential to attack. So here we have king back to g1, getting away from the h-file. Also, the f2 pawn is under attack. So here, Hikaru defends it with the king, and now comes knight to h5. So more and more pieces are starting to gather around Hikaru's king. We have a5 by Hikaru. the position is already very bad. There are no good moves on the king side, and none of the pieces can really move. So here Hikaru wants to make a breakthrough here on the queen side and maybe get this rook into the game via this a6 square. So here we have f5 by Magnus, now starting with the idea of f4 and f3, and Hikaru continues with his plan. We have a captures on b5 and Magnus recaptures. You don't really need to do this. You could also just start advancing the pawn, but safety first, because he doesn't need to risk anything. He already won the first game. Rook to a1, preparing this very nice rook lift, and now Magnus goes for f4. We have rook to a6 going after the bishop here. The idea is if you play something weird, and I'm going to show it because it's very nice. For example, if Magnus just continues the attack, then we go into this very, very cool line of rook captures, and bishop captures. Now preparing to win this rook with check, which would also win this rook. So rook to e8. And now knight e to g3. Let's say we try and save the knight. Now we capture here, then the knight moves, knight to h2, and now we can grab some material here. Captures, captures, and captures. Now we're threatening to capture this with the knight because I know none of you forgot about our good friend the bishop on b8. So here knight to g4 would be played and h5, and this is how black wins. So it takes a while, but maybe not. Maybe you don't need to risk too much. We could even go for some like rook captures on e4, h captures on g4, queen captures on g2. We could trade here, g captures on h3, trade absolutely everything here. And now after this, let's say now we trade everything, captures, 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 and captures. And now black still wins this because, well, he has 2 pawns and the bishop, and the king will very easily pick off all of these pawns, and the white king is simply too far away. But just in case you were wondering, I know you guys really enjoy when I show these hypothetical lines. So instead, Magnus just plays rook c to d8 and now says, yeah, this is doing nothing because now the rook defends the d5 pawn as well, and you will not have bishop captures on d5. So now Hikaru plays f3, prevents Magnus from pushing f3, but now Magnus says, okay, e3 is just as good. We have queen to d1, and now the position is just completely lost. But for the fun of it, feel free to pause the video here and win the game for Magnus, end the quarterfinal match while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on playing pretty much any move in the position, because black's position is just that good. And for those of you who would just want to enjoy the show and have decided to play the exact same move Magnus played, then congratulations, it's bishop captures on h3. Bishop captures on h3 is one of my favorite moves in chess. Always brings back memories of Gerganitze versus Tal, if you remember that game. If you don't, do check it out. I will put a link to it in the description below. Just absolute madness. It's a pretty old video, you know, back when my videos were still at only 30 frames per second, but it's really worth checking out the game if you haven't seen it. So bishop captures on h3, and now capturing the bishop is just game over. Queen f2 check, king h1. We're going to capture this one with check, and now everything just falls apart. King h2, and that's it. Knight g3, we're threatening checkmate here, so we'd have to capture here, but it doesn't really help. Just captures with check, king g1, and now we play check, king h1, and g2 checkmate, as the bishop still covers the h2 square. Do not forget about the bishop. So here, after this bishop captures on h3, Hikaru played rook to g6, but this also doesn't help him all that much. Bishop to f5, sorry, the wrong bishop. I know that the bishop coming to f5 is crucial here. I just picked up the wrong bishop. It happens. So here, bishop to f5, attacking the rook here, and there is now nothing you can do. Hikaru tried with bishop to c2, but that's just game over. Magnus captured on c2, and he was in this position on move 37 that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, and with it, his chances of winning the quarterfinal match against Magnus Carlsen. You cannot capture because the rook hangs, and that's it. If you don't capture, there's really no other move. The queen has no squares. You could try something like queen to a1, but then just queen f2 check, and you know, you play pretty much anything. White is down simply too much material, and the position is just terrible. So yeah, after bishop captures on c2, Hikaru resigned, and an excellent victory for Magnus Carlsen, who really did a fine job bouncing back. Since Hikaru won the first game, then Magnus had to win the second game, and then, you know, But when it comes to Blitz games, even though Hikaru is the highest rated Blitz player in the world and should be the favorite Magnus, it didn't really seem like he had too hard of a time winning both of the games against Hikaru. But yeah, I mean, you can't win them all. So tough break for Hikaru, and congratulations to Magnus on winning this match. I would like to thank Roberto Gomez, Gegi Ikia, Sean Ellis, Ryan Jaglovsky, and Yarden Meshulam for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful event, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.